The FDA says it is working rapidly to give Pfizer and BioNTech's coronavirus vaccine emergency use authorization. An advisory panel voted 17-4 yesterday to recommend the vaccine for people over the age of 16. Emergency use authorization could be given as soon as today, clearing the way for the first COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. Hospitals and pharmacies across the country are urgently preparing for its arrival. But we won't be in the clear anytime soon. This week has been the deadliest of the pandemic yet. According to Johns Hopkins, the U.S. has seen more than 15 million COVID-19 cases and more than 292,000 deaths since the pandemic began. Our David Begnaud has more on the vaccine preps from Los Angeles.
We must demonstrate that the vaccine is highly effective.
That was the topic of discussion that dominated the nearly 9-hour-long discussion by experts on the FDA's Independent Advisory Committee on Vaccines.
The American public demands and deserves a rigorous, comprehensive, and independent review of the data.
Voted yes.
In a 17-4 vote with one abstention, they concluded that the Pfizer vaccine is safe and effective for emergency use for those 16 and older, even with recent concerns about allergic reactions in 2 healthcare workers in the United Kingdom.
I would not hesitate to get the vaccine. I've got a lot of allergies. I plan to get the vaccine.
That is Dr. Arnold Monto. He is the acting chair of that independent advisory committee. He says the vaccine needed to be at least 50% effective for it to receive the committee's recommendation.
This vaccine is in excess of 90%. That's almost a dream scenario.
Did you vote yes or no?
I voted yes enthusiastically.
Right now, hospitals nationwide are preparing to receive the first shipments of the vaccine, and that could happen as early as this weekend. This is the freezer inside of Los Angeles' Cedars-Sinai Hospital, where the vaccine will be kept.
Once we take the vaccine out of the freezer, we have 5 days in the refrigerator.
That's Rita Shane, Chief Pharmacy Officer here at Cedars-Sinai. She has reviewed the vaccine data, and she says reports about allergic reactions in the United Kingdom don't raise any alarm bells for her.
Allergic reactions are something that do occur with everything we take, even food, and the allergic reactions aren't as concerning as getting COVID, and so the focus is on keeping us safe.
For more on this, I want to bring in Dr. Anthony Harris. He's Chief Innovation Officer and Medical Director for WorkCare, an occupational health company. Dr. Harris, welcome. So this vaccine could start to be given out as soon as next week. A lot of people have questions about once they get the vaccine, the first dose, what can they do? Do you have to be just as careful after you've taken the first dose as if you hadn't taken any? And then after you do get the full vaccine, do you still have to wear a mask? And can you still transmit the virus to others? Can they transmit it to you?
Sure. So thanks, Tanya. So when we talk about the first dose and the process that needs to happen after someone receives that first dose, if we look at the data, about 70 to 80% of people will respond from an immunologic standpoint, meaning that the vaccine will work for them for that first dose. But they still need to complete that second dose to get up to that 90, as you heard, above 90% of individuals responding. And after that, yes, we still want you to wear masks. After that, yes, we still want you to practice safe social distancing. You're not in the free and clear, right? 90% is not 100%. And so after you receive that vaccine, we still want those best practices in place, and we want to continue to protect others as a result of that.
And as we've been discussing, this Pfizer vaccine requires those 2 shots weeks apart. How important is it to remind people that they return for the second shot?
It's extremely important, right, for several reasons. First, because, again, after that first dose, if you look at the studies, only about up to 80% of people respond, 90% up to 94% after that second dose. So that's important to get the numbers of responders to the vaccine appropriate. And that's the same with other vaccines as well that require multiple doses. The second reason is we need to remind them not just of when they should get their second dose, but what their second dose should be, right? We have only Pfizer on the market, coming to market now, publicly available, but soon Moderna will likely be next. They meet with the FDA. The FDA meets on the 17th, and then we have others that will likely come to bear. So receiving the Pfizer vaccine, then going to receive the Moderna vaccine, it's not going to work in terms of getting up to that high percentage of responders. So we got to remind them of when and what, which is very important.
And Dr. Harris, there was some concern this week over allergic reactions after two healthcare workers in the UK who were given the Pfizer vaccine had some sorts of adverse reaction. Both did have a previous history of allergic reactions, however. So what should people with a serious history of allergies know?
They need to know what we're advising both here in anticipation of releasing the vaccine and starting to vaccinate individuals, as well as what the UK has told their population, which is if you have that serious history of having a previous reaction to vaccines, hold off on getting this vaccine right now. Consult with your primary care doctor and make sure that they're on board with you getting this vaccine and then time it out, right? But we know that because of those two anaphylactic reactions that happened with those healthcare workers, we need to hit the pause button on individuals who have that serious history.
And as we mentioned earlier, this has been the deadliest week of the pandemic so far. And the average American will not get the vaccine until spring if all goes as planned. So what do people need to do between now and then?
So we got to hunker down, all right, on our methodology for keeping people safe. In the general public, in the workforce, in the healthcare facilities, we all have to adopt a mindset of, look, we're all tired of COVID, right? If we're keeping it real, we all want this to be over, but we can't let our complacency with what we're dealing with day in and day out get the best of us in terms of sticking to those best practices. So the social distancing, the hand hygiene, hopefully everyone's wearing their masks. All those things will still need to be in place, even as we see the different tiers, 1A, 1B, 1C, start to receive the vaccine. We all have to hunker down and double down on our efforts to stay safe.
So any idea when we might reach that herd immunity and the masks can come off?
If we're looking at the timeline, not to be a doomsdayer or a poor prognosticator of the future, right? If we see that the general population is not going to have access to the vaccine come until April at the earliest, if everything goes well, we're not looking at herd immunity till well into end of next year, perhaps not until 2022. And again, this is something that's going to require not just Pfizer, but Moderna, AstraZeneca. All of those vaccines will need to be approved, need to be in the logistics and distribution phase. We're going to have to administer. It's going to be all hands on deck, even more so than it is now, to make sure we reach that herd immunity. But we're not looking until late next year at the earliest.
Well, Dr. Anthony Harris, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you, Tanya.